What do you think are the key aspects to be considered when we implement environmentally sustainable methods during the construction phase of metro systems?
We always focus on people-centric. At the end of the day, the people's thermal comfort, lighting comfort, or their commutation experience should not be compromised, number one. Having said that, how do we enhance the resource efficiency? We are not only worried about bringing down the energy consumption or a few liters of water consumption alone by compromising the comfort level. So here, as you heard from the leading designers and architects and GCs involved in metro rail. So here, IGBC's green metro rail network is a holistic approach in enhancing the resource efficiency. For example, as you heard from all the stalwarts, the viaducts or tunnels or a station construction consumes enormous amount of resources, be it a steel or a concrete or a high grade of concretes, which has to withstand all the load as well as the seismic zones and all of that. So how do I reduce the resource consumption by enhancing efficiency? That is what we in IGBC say. For example, when you say a concrete or a cement, where the limestone has been quarried, how we have been transporting it to the cement manufacturing unit, how it is manufactured in a nice way in terms of how lean and green is the cement manufacturing itself so that it consumes less carbon. So when the concrete lands at the construction site or a preparatory area, it's hundreds of acres of a land where all the viaducts and others are all prefabricated. And then it is transported to the entire rail network, which cuts across. You heard from the stalwart, Mr. Chelliah, showcasing it in the closer to the Marina Beach or the Gindi. Even when I crossed the Gindi in Chennai, this is one of the astonishing. Already there is a metro rail and a beautiful bridges there. And then on top of it, now one more line is coming up. So how challenging is to lift the entire material? So we ensure that the entire construction safety standards are all not at all withstands, and the resource efficiency is maintained. So when the project is completed, which will run for several decades to come, so the entire embodied carbon, while the designs are conceived, as architect Sukhen Padmanabha mentioned about how do I make the boxes more tighter, every square inches, not only the Tokyos and Singapore, the land costs are costlier. Here in every single metro city in India, including the tier 2, tier 3 cities, every square mm is $1 million. So how do we make it more compact? At the same time, the number of passengers getting inside the metro stations are also exponentially growing year after year.
And my next question is to architect Sukhen. So you have been involved in the design of a lot of metro stations, especially underground metro stations. So we would like to know how technology is enabling the sustainable design and construction of underground metros, because underground metros, it involves a lot of excavation, tunneling, and all of the disruption out there. So we want to know how technology is enabling a sustainable design and construction.
Sure, Upama. Yeah. So just taking off from the previous question as well, technology is really helping the actual construction. Starting even from the TBMs, the way they go about it is very methodical, because if I just were to talk about the first time we did in Bangalore, the first stretch, it took us quite a long time to figure out how to lower the TBMs and take them, and we were very cautious. But now in the subsequent phases, it's much more faster. Everyone has got everything in place, because basically what, like Mr. Chelliah showed, all those sinkhole issues are being avoided, and everything is well mapped, because some structures come way down below. The other thing which is helping a lot with technology is basically, one of the main things is we need a lot of natural ventilation in the underground station. So using a good amount of filtration system, everything, because health and well-being is very important for the passengers down. So using all those filters, those MERV 8 and 13 filters, all those HEPA filters, to ensure the good well-being. So that's all because of technology. And now with the amazing amount of simulation which is possible, the data capturing when there is a drop in, all the indoor air quality when it comes down, slowly pump in more fresh air. So technology is really improved a lot in India, and I'm sure, considering Mr. Chelliah's experience, I think in the next 5 to 7 years, sir, I think India will pretty much be up to international standards.
Initiatives like regenerative braking project, modal shift project, and energy efficiency project under CDM, clean development mechanism, making metro rail projects environment friendly.
Especially since the IGBC, the India IGBC headquarters is located in Hyderabad, where the land terrain offers an enormous amount of rocky, undulated, rocky terrain. We play around. The railway designers have got a beautiful hum profile, which encourages the regenerative mechanism much better. So the IGBC's green MRTS rating program addresses the energy efficiency in both traction and non-traction. So by design, as you heard from all the stalwarts, we go into the best of the best air conditioners with the highest COP, highest energy efficiency on the lighting with the LPDs and the lighting colors, as well as on the elevators and the lift, in order to consume less energy, enhancing the commuter experience. Since you asked about the regenerative braking, as far as the traction is concerned, more weightage is given. So it's a no-brainer. Every one of us, we know that traction is the one which consumes enormous amount of energy in taking people from A to B. So the IGBC rating program gives us the highest weightage to the energy efficiency to start with. Within the energy efficiency also, we give enormous amount of encouragement for the regenerative mechanism, which generates or regenerates the power and puts it back to the entire system back based on the hum profiling and all of that. So it's an amazing story. And then as far as the IGBC rating program is concerned, every 4th year, it is not that since 2014 when we launched the world's first rating program, it's casted in concrete. Every 4 years, by taking the entire experience, as you heard from Mr. Chelliah, the phase 1 of Chennai, we learned it a lot, and phase 2 must be much better. Same way, we also come out with the revised version every 4th year. So we raise the threshold of our rating program in order to bring in the reduced tar weight of the traction, as well as the next generation of the regenerative braking, so that every single kilowatt saved is not only saving the couple of or 4 kilowatts in the generation, the carbon emissions is also added. Now the whole world talks about one language is carbon. So the IGBC's Green Metro Rating Program recognizes, rewards, and encourages most amount of the how your designs and operations are able to enhance the energy efficiency through the tar weight coming down, as well as the regenerative braking or regenerative generation, which puts back the power back into the system.
Question to Chelliah, sir. So we speak about structural health monitoring and the importance of structural health monitoring for every structure. So I think even metro rail systems are no exception to that. So how do you think, advanced sensors, data analytics, and real-time monitoring systems helping in structural health monitoring of metro, the infrastructure as such?
I think 2 parts. One is the operation of the train itself. There are 2. One is the wheel bearing sensors, and then wheel profile loosening, control of wheel bearing. These 2 are fundamentally important. One is to make sure that bearing sensors to give you the temperature. If the temperature increases beyond, they can cease. And same goes with when wheel profile actually goes off. These 2 elements are so detrimental. If they do happen, then it can be the cause for derailment. So these 2 are fundamentally important in terms of train operations. When you look at the other areas with like a strain gauges, a fiber background, FBG being called, they detect the deflections of the steel, the rail reflections to any other reflection within the sensors are to protect or to give you the indications of them. And then accelerometers are to control the vibration. The vibration would tells you the train movements and discomfort, and then perhaps that gives you the indication something not right with the either from the mechanism of the engine or the track itself. Then the crack displacement sensors also track cracks and whatever to determine. Okay? Temperature control, humidity control, and corrosion sensors on the DC circuits also. So these elements are continuously to monitor before even when it is in a very minor defects. If you capture them, it will not you don't allow them to escalate into a major repair concern. So this actually improves the infrastructure life by in that much earlier stage you can repair it, maintain it properly, so you can maintain the lifespan of the structure. The other one is the cost saving also. If you allow it to deteriorate, and then if a train, the wheels are gone, if the tracks are worn out badly, then all these can actually cause serious the costs as well. Okay, and then also the derailment, also the passenger safety. Then you can also optimize in the maintenance by adapting these monitoring system itself. So these are generally of how to effectively maintain by adapting these sensors in terms of health of the operations.
Okay, great. Thank you, sir. So my next question to architect Sukhen Padmanabha. So, as we speak about energy efficiency and energy efficient features, like we would like to know, as an architect, when we plan for metro stations, how do you think, we can plan for reduced heat island effect, renewable energy integration, and insulated building envelopes and improved air quality and all of that. So, what do you think are the best practices or the key considerations for while designing metro stations?
Sure. Thanks, Anupama. So fundamentally, for the reduced heat island effect, I think that solar canopy, especially at elevated metro stations, we have planned, especially at Ahmedabad metros, we put solar photovoltaic cells on the rooftop because basically it's a very thin galvanum sheet. And so putting the photovoltaic cells kind of helps reduce that as well. And a few places wherever we have like an RCC roof or something like that, we look very much at putting that high solar reflective index, a lighter colored tile, so everything goes up. The heat and light gets reflected. The other thing which is worth doing, but sometimes we've not been very successful, is to incorporate a lot of vegetation. We all talk about green walls and things like that, but in India, maintenance is an issue. So if you start putting green walls, that comes all our lizards and all that. So sometimes some things are good as a thought process, but we have our Indian challenges as far as that goes. At a couple of places, we did explore the idea of putting that building integrated photovoltaic cells, but again, cost begins to play a huge factor. But the other thing, which to keep the temperatures down, we've used a lot of louvers in Bangalore and Ahmedabad. In Bhopal, we're trying to do a new thing called the GRC jalis, the glass reinforced jalis, so which will prevent, because Ahmedabad and Bhopal have a lot of heat, and so does much of India. So louvers and jalis are good. It'll be nice to do overhangs, but because our station boxes are tight, it is really pretty difficult to do that. So fundamentally, those are the things which we implement.
Agree with architect Shuken, like we can use such sheeting kind of and louver and some natural elements and optimized use of glass, maximum use of natural elements which require lesser maintenance, like we conventionally already doing uh, solar system on the rooftop in all elevated metros, which is TMRC and other metros pet step to you know produce more energy from their own mean. Other than that, we can use some geometric patterns with reference to the geological condition of that particular area to achieve some thermal shading, such kind of to avoid such heat island effect. Other than that, most of the areas in India, we have a lot of heat effect, so it would be difficult to minimize the air conditioning load, but yes, we can minimize up to a certain level by using some like louver, jali, geometric pattern, some shapes and turns on the elevation part, where we can optimize the uh, direct sunlight and all. And whatever internal systems has been placed in place in the design process, that should be planned in such a way that it should allow uh, as less as energy efficiencies aspects. So more rating systems to be adopted, like other than we are doing IGBC. Sometime some code mentioned that we have to also follow international norms. So particularly when it comes to installation part and testing commissioning part, some of the equipment comes only with certain kind of energy efficiency criteria. So to reach to up to that level, we the installation procedure and all the items that has been installed, be it air conditioning part, be it firefighting systems and all, they must have all kind of rating, and including IGBC rating, which has more descriptive way of explaining things. Yeah, that's all from my side.
Okay.
Quickly, I can add up, as beautifully told by all the stalwarts. We have done it in many of the metros. Full credit goes to all the designers. Even the profiling of the elevated stations, which brings in enormous amount of daylight based on the orientation. Unlike a building, many times the network here in a metro rail station, we don't have the flexibility to move around. But nevertheless, many of the designers and GCs have done a fabulous job in bringing in more and more daylight, more and more bringing in a natural draft, which brings a lot of fresh air, so that the daylight and the fresh air are encouraged, so that our air conditioning load comes down without compromising on the comfort level. So especially a city like Chennai and all, where the weather is always hot, hotter and hottest only. So we don't have any seasonal changes at all, unlike Pune's or Delhi's. So even when I had 40, 45 degrees outside, when I come into the station, elevated station, 27, 28 itself is much. So the profiling done on the roofing sheets, the openings, all that is encouraged by our IGBC's green rating program. Number two, on the underground stations, air conditioning is the biggest energy guzzler. So how the platform screen doors, how do all we automate it so that the energy, the cooling is not lost, is also encouraged. And many of the stations now, they are all as good as the Hong Kong's MTRs or the Shankies and the London tubes, where the greeneries, for example, Hyderabad's or DMRC's phase 3, phase 4 or phase 2, some of the stations I've seen in Chennai as well, how they are able to have a lot of greenery on the, so you're not like station is all of a sudden station is coming up. So there is a lot of greenery, parks and the social areas are all maintained, which leads to the station, which have all the, most of the viaducts are all covered with vertical greenery, which also addresses the heat island effect. Our architect Padmanabha mentioned about that. Heat island mitigation measures are also encouraged, or Miyake forest adopted by Chennai Metro, because sometimes when the metro rail cuts into the old cities, many of the metros are all 400, 500 years old cities gets across. So we may be forced to cut some trees. So they compensate beyond the environmental norms also, whichever is asking so many trees to be planted for every single. So there, Chennai, for example, they adopted Miyake forest. Per acre of that forest, they have put more and more greenery, which will be able to absorb more and more carbon or CO2, which will act like a enhanced carbon sink. So IGBC rating program addresses by design, how do I mitigate the heat island effect by having, as architect Padmanabha mentioned, about a high SRI paint or a solar reflective index paint and all of that in the roofing sheet, as well as doing a better modeling of the profiling of the roofing sheet on the elevated stations. All of that is being encouraged. Then away from the, because stations are all very compact, we don't have a lot of legroom to play around. And for example, Hyderabad is one of the world's first and only private public partner PPP model, which has got the highest rating. There they've gone for the wing and the span system, so that the right-of-way measures are all minimized, so that more space is available for the many other measures, including the drop-off points, greenery, parking, all of that. So we have classical examples across many metro rails, UP Metro, which is getting inside the heritage city, There they have done many measures to reduce the heat island effect, reduce the energy consumption on the air conditioning with the beautiful designs, backed up by well integrating the dovetail like what you're seeing in Changi airports or MTRs in Hong Kong, how the green walls, the gardens, which are all the approach towards the metro stations, has been beautifully integrated. So that's what we enhancing the commuter experience is the foremost. People are at the center as far as IGBC is concerned. So I'll stop it there, Anupama.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, yeah, I think I have two last questions to everybody. One is like, I would like to know the, challenges as we move towards sustainable designing and construction of metros. So, what are the challenges and how do you think they can be overcome? Anybody's open to take this up? And then I have one more question. Probably after your insights, I can do that.
I think I actually put last two slides. I put the collapse of major stations, the Nickel Highway in Singapore, and there's two other tunnel collapses as well in Malaysia. We witnessed it. And what actually also there are other issues relating to tunneling in the urban area. When we go mixed ground conditions, where soft ground with mixed with rock and whatever, that makes our construction so challenging. So actually, right up the front, I gave a presentation for the way back to Chennai Metro in my 2015. They invited me here. At that time, I get design and construction, and what was a lesson learned over the years. The first thing is right up front, you do an extensive soil investigation to understand what's the ground is like we're going to go through. Secondly, to understand that, so then you do a geological interpretive study to understand how the ground would behave when you deep excavation, when you do the tunneling. So that is, you don't save money on it. You do an extensive analysis done. So my recommendation to that, if you are doing a tunneling every 25 to 30 meters, you have every hole in to understand what the ground is like. And then secondly, that when we write the procedures, making sure that the contractor price them accordingly. And so we detail with writing the procedure. Also, we expect the contractor to price accordingly. If they don't price it correctly, they will tend to cut corners. So we actually, what our intent is to cleanly written all the risks are. Also, we design up the risks to make sure that all the method of construction we put in our documentation, contract documentation, well defined so that to minimize the risk like collapses or whatever. And then also in the documents also we write that the contractor must clear or reduce the risk to acceptable level. That's a contractor responsibility in terms of construction methodology. So then I mentioned earlier on the road diversion, utility diversions, and these are time consuming. The time also very serious risk for construction. Because time means money. The longer they delay, more money to the contractor. So the design of it much earlier stage, feasibility study of it must be done much more extensive way. Say, for example, I'm tunneling under multi-story building all the way from Lighthouse, cutting through Boat Club, all the way to Penagal Park, through Nandan. Every building along the line, we analyze how those buildings behave from our tunneling construction. These assessments have to be done extensively. And then when the contractor come on board, he put instrumentation on the buildings, on the ground, to understand how the ground moves, whether the ground movement, building movements are close to what they predicted in the analysis. So all the assessment done before you go into call tender. On the call and tender, when you go into the construction, You've got to make sure the contractor put in place adequate protections to the buildings, prevention from ground settlements or whatever. At the same time, monitor them to make sure that whatever design has been done, whether the ground or structure behaving the way it expected or predicted. If you keep that sort of discipline throughout, from design to calling tender to tender evaluation to construction supervision all the way, then you can manage a construction safely. That's from me.
Fine. So I think my one last question would be, so can when it comes to establishing metro as a sustainable and green transport system, why is it crucial to adopt an integrated approach? First thing is that, and integrated approach among all stakeholders, and what are the best methods to do that? So this again is an open question to everyone.
So here, with our experience working with all the GCs and 19 metro rail authorities across the country, many of them now by design, as Mr. Chelliah and architect Sukhen mentioned, they started mentioning minimum IGBC gold standards are to be even before the GC comes on board, number one. So that's the good news for all of us, so that they are all looking for sustainability, environmental or energy efficient design by word, from the word go. Number two, the material also, many of them have said about availability of material. So IGBC has started a exclusive rating for the materials. What kind of a steel, paint, door, tile, cement I'm getting inside the Metro Rail Authority. We have launched a rating program called Green Pro, stands for Green Product Certification. So that is also specified by the specifiers, designers, so that there is no ambiguity. Imagine I'm a contractor, I know what kind of a paint I have to bring in. So the Green Pro certification of IGBC ensures that you are bringing in a material which can withstand all the requirements, design requirements of a metro rail, as well as green quotient is also addressed, resource efficiency. The good news is 12,000 products are IGBC Green Pro certified in India. So whether it is a concrete, cement, steel, all of them in the last 10 years, this availability of materials are in abundance. So together as a stakeholder, these kind of sessions, one, we wanted to bring in more and more awareness. Number two, the green building materials, technologies, and systems are available in abundance in the Indian subcontinent itself. Third is, how do we sensitize them to use? That is the reason we celebrate the World Green Building Week on the 3rd week of September. Even symbolically, people will start using the metros on those first 1 or 2 days. And most of them are able to continue that also. Though what it starts as a symbolic one, they are able to sustain it. People may think that the first mile and last mile connectivity is not there. People are comfortable in at least one change. I can come by a share auto, get into the metro and get into my workplace. So these are the 3 things I would love to highlight. And then we are also closely working with the ministries and the state governments and the funders also, like many of the metro projects are funded by multinational or bilateral agencies like JCAS and other banks. They also are very happy to know that the sustainability is also addressed by the metro rail authorities through the rating program and the materials and societal improvement, inclusive also. For example, Mr. Chelliah will have all the resource and expertise and knowledge. When the Anna Nagars and the boat club, how the common man will entitle is not only the cutout taken, if there is a park and others, what exactly the citizens are looking forward. All that is being encouraged. We have started doing that. The public and others engagement during the design, construction, as well during the construction of the metro rail network itself. So I stop it there, Anupam.